She didn't think. She just moved. When the gunfire erupted in the crowded mall, Arya's only instinct was to shield her twins. She threw herself over them, felt the burning impact tear through her shoulder, and collapsed. Through the chaos and screaming, she looked up and locked eyes with a man in an expensive black suit. His face went pale. His gun lowered. And in that frozen moment, recognition flickered across his features like he'd seen a ghost. Because 15 years ago, he'd made her a promise he never kept. If you're listening to this story, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments what part of the world you're listening from. The rain had been falling on Portland, Oregon for 3 days straight, turning the streets into rivers of reflected neon and making everything smell like wet concrete and coffee. Arya Chen stood at the window of her cramped apartment in the Jade District, watching droplets race down the glass, while her 6-year-old twins, Mia and Lucas, argued over the last waffle at the breakfast table behind her. "Mom, Lucas took my syrup." "Did not. You used all of it." Arya turned from the window, her dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, the shadows under her eyes testament to another night of double shifts at Providence Hospital. She was 28 but felt 40. The fluorescent kitchen light buzzed overhead, casting everything in a tired yellow glow. "There's more syrup in the cabinet," she said quietly, moving to the stove where scrambled eggs were starting to burn. She scraped them onto 2 plastic plates decorated with cartoon characters, whose paint had mostly worn away. "Eat quickly. We need to leave in 10 minutes. Lucas, with his mother's dark eyes and serious expression, pushed his glasses up his nose. "Is it still raining?" "Yes, baby." "Bring your raincoat." Mia, more outgoing than her brother, swung her legs under the table. "Can we go to the mall after school? Please? Everyone says the new bookstore has a reading corner with beanbags." Arya felt the familiar tightness in her chest, the constant calculation of dollars against desires. The mall. She hadn't been to Pioneer Place in months. Too expensive, too tempting, too full of things her children wanted that she couldn't provide. "We'll see," she said, which both children understood meant probably not. The apartment was small but clean. Arya kept it that way with the same fierce determination she applied to everything in her life. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that opened into a living room, barely big enough for a couch and a television she'd bought secondhand. The walls were thin enough that she could hear Mrs. Kowalski's television through the plaster, and the heating was unreliable, but the rent was manageable. Barely. On the refrigerator, held by a magnet shaped like the Oregon coast, was a photograph that Arya tried not to look at too often. Herself at 13, smiling, standing next to a tall boy with sharp features and eyes that seemed to see everything. His arm was around her shoulders. They were in front of Lincoln High School, before everything fell apart, before Vincent Kane disappeared from her life without explanation. She pushed the memory away like she always did, focusing instead on the immediate demands of single motherhood. Lunches packed, peanut butter sandwiches, apple slices, the last of the cookies. Permission slips signed for Lucas's field trip. Mia's library book found under the couch. The Rhythm of Survival. Coats on, let's go. The drive to Bridal Mile Elementary took 15 minutes through rain-slicked streets. Arya's Honda Civic was 12 years old and made concerning noises when she accelerated too quickly. But it ran. That was enough. She pulled into the drop-off line, kissed both children, reminded them she'd pick them up at 3. "Love you more than the moon," she said, their ritual. "Love you more than the stars," they chorused back. Then they were gone, backpacks bouncing, running through the rain toward the school entrance. Arya watched until they disappeared inside, then checked her phone. One text from her supervisor at the hospital. "Can you cover tonight?" Jenny called in sick. She closed her eyes. Another double shift. Another day of barely seeing her children, but also another paycheck, and they needed new winter coats. "Yes," she typed back. "I'll be there." The hospital was in the Pearl District, a neighborhood of converted warehouses and expensive condos that Arya could never afford. She parked in the employee lot and walked through the rain to the staff entrance, her scrubs already on under her jacket. The emergency room was chaos as always. Portland's homeless population seeking shelter from the weather, a construction worker with a nail through his hand, an elderly woman with pneumonia. Arya moved through it all with practiced efficiency. Check vitals, start IVs, hold hands, offer comfort. She was good at her job, good at being present for strangers, even when exhaustion made her bones ache. During her lunch break, she sat in the break room, and ate a granola bar while scrolling through her bank account. Rent due in 5 days. Electric bill overdue. The twins needed new shoes. She did the math 3 times, trying to make the numbers work differently, but they never did. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Arya Chen? She frowned, fingers hovering over the screen. Probably spam. She deleted it, but something about seeing her full name made her uneasy. She thought again of that photograph on her refrigerator, of Vincent Kane and the promise he'd made when they were kids. I'll always protect you, no matter what. Then he'd vanished. His family moved away overnight. Rumors said his father was involved in something criminal, that they'd fled to avoid arrest. Vincent never called, never wrote. Arya had been 14 and heartbroken, and she'd learned early that promises meant nothing. She finished her shift at 7, picked up the twins from after-school care, drove home through rain that had finally started to ease. Dinner was spaghetti with jarred sauce. Homework was supervised at the kitchen table. Baths were negotiated. Stories were read. By 9 o'clock, both children were asleep in the bedroom they shared, and Arya stood again at her window, looking out at the city lights reflecting off wet pavement. The rain had stopped, leaving everything clean and temporary. She didn't know that tomorrow would shatter the careful life she'd built. Didn't know that the past she'd buried was about to resurface with the force of a bullet. Didn't know that the man she'd once loved had become something dangerous, and that their paths were about to collide in the worst possible way. All she knew was that she was tired, and tomorrow she'd wake up and do it all again, because that's what mothers did. They survived. They endured. They protected. Outside, somewhere in the Portland night, a black Mercedes pulled up to a warehouse in the industrial district. Vincent Kane stepped out, his tailored suit perfect despite the weather, his expression carved from stone. He was 30 now, no longer the boy who'd made promises to a girl with hopeful eyes. He was the head of the Kane family, the most powerful criminal organization in the Pacific Northwest, and he'd spent 15 years trying to forget the life he'd left behind, trying to forget her. But tonight, as he walked into the warehouse to deal with a problem that threatened his empire, he had no idea that fate was about to force him to remember everything. The rain began again, soft and insistent, washing over the city like a whisper of things to come. The call came at 6 in the morning, jarring Arya from a dream she couldn't remember. She fumbled for her phone, heart already racing with the parents' instinctive fear that something had happened to her children, but they were safe in the next room. She could hear Lucas's soft snoring through the thin wall. "Hello? Arya, it's Margaret." Her supervisor's voice was tight with stress. "I know it's your day off, but we have a situation. Multi-vehicle accident on I-5. We need everyone." Arya closed her eyes, calculating. She'd promised the twins they'd go to the library today, maybe stop for hot chocolate at the cafe on Hawthorne, but the hospital needed her, and she needed the overtime. "I'll be there in 40 minutes. She woke the children gently, explained the change in plans. Mia's face crumpled with disappointment, but Lucas just nodded with that too-old understanding that broke Arya's heart a little more each time she saw it. "It's okay, Mom," he said quietly. "We can go to Mrs. Kowalski's." Their elderly neighbor had become their unofficial grandmother, watching the twins when Arya's schedule demanded it. She never asked for payment, just accepted the occasional casserole or help with her shopping. It was charity, and Arya hated accepting it, but she had no choice. The hospital was controlled chaos. Arya moved through it on autopilot. Trauma Bay 3, compound fracture, possible internal bleeding, a teenager who'd been texting while driving, now unconscious and intubated, his mother in the waiting room, destroyed by guilt and terror. During a brief lull around noon, Arya checked her phone. 3 missed calls from a number she didn't recognize, the same number that had texted yesterday. A voicemail waited. She pressed play, expecting a robocall. Instead, a man's voice, low and careful. "Arya, it's Vincent. I know it's been a long time. I need to talk to you. It's important. Please call me back." The phone nearly slipped from her hand. Vincent Kane. 15 years of silence, and now this. Her first instinct was to delete the message, block the number, pretend she'd never heard his voice again. But something in his tone stopped her, an urgency that felt real, almost desperate. She saved the message and went back to work, but her mind was elsewhere. Why now? What could he possibly want after all this time? The shift ended at 8. Arya picked up the twins from Mrs. Kowalski's apartment, where they'd spent the day watching old movies and eating homemade pierogi. Lucas was quiet on the drive home, staring out the window at the city lights. Mia chattered about the movie they'd watched, something with singing animals. "Mom?" Lucas said suddenly. "Are we poor?" Arya's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Why do you ask that, baby?" "Tommy at school said his mom said we're poor because we live in the Jade District, and you work at the hospital, but you're not a doctor. The casual cruelty of children, repeating the casual cruelty of their parents." Arya felt anger flash hot in her chest, followed immediately by shame, because Tommy's mother wasn't wrong. "We have everything we need," she said carefully. "We have each other. That's what matters." But Lucas was too smart to be fooled by platitudes. He just nodded and went back to looking out the window. That night, after the twins were asleep, Arya sat on her couch with her phone in her hand, staring at Vincent's number. She should delete it. Whatever he wanted, it couldn't be good. People didn't disappear for 15 years and then reappear with good news. But her finger hovered over the call button, and she thought about the boy he'd been, her best friend, her first kiss, stolen behind the gym when they were 13, the person who'd understood her, in a way no one else ever had. She pressed call before she could change her mind. He answered on the first ring. Arya, just her name, but the way he said it made her feel 13 again, vulnerable and hopeful and terrified. "Why are you calling me, Vincent?" A pause. Then, "I need to see you. In person. There's something you need to know." "I don't need to know anything from you. You left. You disappeared without a word. You don't get to just—" "I know." His voice was rough. "I know I hurt you. But this isn't about us. It's about your safety. Yours and your children's." Ice flooded her veins. "How do you know about my children?" "Arya, please. Meet me tomorrow. Pioneer Place Mall. The food court. Noon. I'll explain everything." "I'm not meeting you anywhere until you tell me what this is about." Another pause. Longer this time. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Harder. With an edge that hadn't been there before. "Do you remember my father? What people said about him?" She did. Rumors of organized crime, of violence, of connections to things that happened in shadows. Yes, it was all true. And I'm my father's son, Arya. I run the family business now. And something's happening. Something that might put you in danger. I can't explain over the phone. Please, trust me one more time." She should say no. Should hang up and never answer his calls again. Should protect herself and her children from whatever darkness he'd brought with him. But she heard herself say, "Noon tomorrow. Food court. You have 15 minutes." She hung up before he could respond. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Arya lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain start again outside. What had Vincent become? What kind of danger was he talking about? And why, after all these years, did the thought of seeing him again make her heart race with something that felt dangerously close to anticipation? Across the city, Vincent Kane sat in his office on the top floor of a building his organization owned, looking out at the Portland skyline. His second-in-command, Marcus, stood nearby, arms crossed. "You sure about this, boss? Dragging her into our world?" Vincent's jaw tightened. "She's already in it. She just doesn't know it yet. Because of the twins? Because of everything." Vincent turned from the window. "Dmitry Volkov is making moves. He knows about her. If I don't warn her, if I don't protect her, she's not your responsibility anymore. You made that choice 15 years ago. I made that choice to protect her," Vincent said quietly. "And I'm making this choice for the same reason." Marcus shook his head but didn't argue further. He'd worked for the Kane family long enough to know that when Vincent made up his mind, nothing would change it. Vincent looked down at his phone, at the brief call log showing Arya's number. Tomorrow, he'd see her again. Tomorrow, he'd have to explain what he'd become, what dangers surrounded them both, and why the past they'd shared was about to collide with a present neither of them could escape. The rain continued to fall, washing the city clean while underneath, in the dark places where Vincent Kane conducted his business, plans were being made that would change everything. Pioneer Place Mall was crowded for a Thursday afternoon. Arya navigated through clusters of teenagers and young mothers with strollers, her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd left the twins with Mrs. Kowalski again, claiming she had a doctor's appointment. The lie sat heavy in her stomach. The food court smelled like grease and cinnamon, a cacophony of competing franchises, and too bright lighting. She spotted Vincent immediately, sitting at a corner table away from the main traffic. He wore dark jeans and a black sweater. Nothing ostentatious, but he carried himself differently now. with a coiled tension that suggested violence was always an option. He stood when he saw her. For a moment they just looked at each other across the distance of 15 years. He'd grown into his features. The sharp angles of his face had matured into something striking, almost severe. His dark hair was shorter, professionally cut, but his eyes were the same, that intense gray that had always seemed to see straight through her. Arya. He didn't try to hug her, didn't reach out, just spoke her name like a prayer or an apology. "You have 15 minutes. She sat down across from him, keeping the table between them like a barrier. "Talk." Vincent glanced around the food court, a habit she recognized as hypervigilance. "My father was the head of an organization that controlled most of the criminal activity in the Pacific Northwest. Gambling, protection, some drug distribution. When I was 13, a rival family tried to take him out. That's why we left Portland so suddenly. We went to Seattle, regrouped, and eventually my father rebuilt everything." Arya's hands were clenched in her lap. "And you? You just followed in his footsteps?" Pain flashed across his face. "I didn't have a choice. In my world, you're either in or you're dead. I chose to live." He leaned forward. "But I never forgot you. I wanted to reach out, to explain, but I knew that any connection to me would put you in danger. So I stayed away. I let you go." "How noble," she said, unable to keep the bitterness from her voice. "And now? Why break your silence now?" "Because there's a new player in Portland. Dmitry Volkov. He runs the Russian operations on the East Coast, and he's trying to expand west. He's been targeting my business, my people, and he's been asking questions about my past." Vincent's eyes locked on hers. "About you." The food court noise seemed to fade away. "What?" "He found out we were close when we were kids. He thinks you're leverage, a way to get to me." Arya stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. No, you don't get to do this. You don't get to disappear for 15 years and then show up and tell me I'm in danger because of you. My children, I know about Mia and Lucas." Vincent stood too, his voice low and urgent. "I've had people watching your building for the past week, making sure Volkov's men don't get close. I'm trying to protect you." "You're having me watched?" Her voice rose, drawing attention from nearby tables. "You have no right." "I have every right to keep you safe. You have no rights where I'm concerned." She was shaking now, fury and fear mixing into something explosive. "Stay away from me. Stay away from my children. Whatever danger you've brought to my door, take it somewhere else." She turned to leave, but Vincent caught her arm. His grip was gentle but firm. "Arya, please, just listen." The gunfire started before he could finish the sentence. Later, Arya would remember it in fragments, the sharp crack of shots echoing through the mall. Screaming. Vincent's body slamming into hers, pushing her down behind a planter. More shots, closer now. The acrid smell of gunpowder. Vincent pulling a gun from beneath his sweater. When had he started carrying a gun? And returning fire with a precision that spoke of extensive training. "Stay down," he shouted. But Arya's nurse instincts overrode her fear. She saw a woman 20 feet away, clutching her leg, blood pooling beneath her. Saw 2 small children huddled against a storefront, frozen with terror. Saw, oh God, Mia and Lucas. They were there, in the mall, running toward her through the chaos. They must have convinced Mrs. Kowalski to bring them, must have wanted to surprise her. And now they were in the middle of a war zone, their faces white with terror, screaming for their mother. Arya didn't think. She just moved. She ran toward them, arms outstretched, and she saw the gunman, a man in a leather jacket with cold eyes, swing his weapon toward her children. Saw his finger tighten on the trigger. Saw the future collapse into a single moment of choice. She threw herself in front of the twins, felt their small bodies collide with hers, and then the impact was fire and ice simultaneously. Her left shoulder exploded in pain, the force spinning her around. She collapsed on top of Mia and Lucas, covering them with her body, feeling their terrified sobbing against her chest. Through the pain and chaos, she looked up and locked eyes with Vincent Kane. He was standing 15 feet away, his gun raised, his face drained of all color. He was staring at her and the twins, with an expression of absolute horror. His gun lowered slowly, his hand shaking. He was frozen, completely, utterly frozen, because he'd just seen her take a bullet for 2 children who had his eyes. Mia and Lucas both had Vincent's distinctive gray eyes, the same unusual shade that Arya had fallen in love with when she was 13. the same eyes that were now staring at her with dawning, terrible understanding. "No," Vincent whispered, the word barely audible over the screaming and sirens. "No, that's not. They can't be." But Arya saw the moment he did the math, saw him count back 15 years to the night before his family fled Portland, to the desperate goodbye they'd shared in his father's empty house, to the promises they'd made and the innocence they'd lost. Saw him realize that she'd been pregnant when he left, that she'd raised his children alone, that everything he'd done to protect her had been meaningless because she'd been carrying pieces of him all along. "Vincent," she managed to say through the pain, blood soaking through her shirt. "Vincent, help them. Please." He moved then, training overriding shock. He was beside her in seconds, his hands gentle as he checked her wound, his voice steady as he called orders to men she hadn't noticed before, his people emerging from the chaos to secure the scene. "You're going to be okay," he told her, and she heard the tremor beneath the control. The bullet went through. "You're going to be fine. The twins," he gasped. They're not hurt. You protected them." His hand cupped her face, and his eyes were wet. "You protected my children." Mia was crying, clutching Arya's good arm. Lucas was silent, his face buried against his mother's side, his small body shaking. They didn't understand what was happening, didn't know that the man kneeling beside them was their father, didn't know that their world had just irrevocably changed. The sirens were closer now. Vincent looked torn, desperate. "I have to go. If the police find me here." "Go," Arya whispered. "Just go. I'll fix this. I'll end this. I promise." He pressed something into her good hand. A phone. "This number is secure. Call me. Please. We need to talk about everything." Then he was gone, disappearing into the chaos with his men, leaving Arya bleeding on the mall floor with their children crying in her arms, and the weight of 15 years of secrets finally, catastrophically, revealed. The paramedics arrived. Arya was loaded onto a stretcher, Mia and Lucas refusing to leave her side. As they wheeled her toward the ambulance, she caught a glimpse of the gunman, dead, taken down by Vincent's precise shooting, saw the police swarming the scene, saw the frightened faces of shoppers who'd come for books and coffee and found a battlefield instead. And she knew, with absolute certainty, that nothing would ever be the same. Vincent Kane knew she existed, knew his children existed, and whatever war he was fighting had just expanded to include the 3 people he'd spent 15 years trying to protect through absence. The ambulance doors closed. Arya held her twins close with her good arm and let the tears finally come, mixing with the rain that had started again outside, washing away the blood but not the consequences of a past that refused to stay buried. The hospital room was private, too expensive, and Arya knew without asking that Vincent had arranged it. She'd woken from surgery to find Mia and Lucas asleep in chairs beside her bed, Mrs. Kowalski sitting vigil in the corner, and 2 men in dark suits stationed outside her door, who were definitely not hospital security. Her shoulder throbbed despite the pain medication. The surgeon had been optimistic. Clean through and through, no major damage, full recovery expected. But Arya felt anything but optimistic as she stared at the ceiling tiles and tried to process the wreckage of her carefully constructed life. The twins knew something was wrong, beyond the obvious trauma of the shooting. They'd been quiet all evening, watching her with frightened eyes, asking questions she didn't know how to answer. "Mom, who was that man?" Lucas had asked. "The one who helped us?" "An old friend," she'd said, which was both true and a devastating understatement. Now it was past midnight. Mrs. Kowalski had taken the twins back to the apartment with promises to stay with them. The men outside her door had changed shifts, and Arya was alone with the phone Vincent had given her, its weight somehow heavier than any phone should be. She should throw it away, should refuse to engage with whatever came next, should protect her children from the dangerous world Vincent inhabited. But he was their father, and they had his eyes, and 15 years of secrets were demanding to be spoken aloud. She pressed the single number programmed into the phone. He answered immediately. "Arya, they're your children. No preamble, no softening, just the truth, stark and unavoidable. I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after you left. I tried to find you, but your family had disappeared completely, so I did it alone." Silence on the other end, heavy with emotion she couldn't read. "Why didn't you—" His voice broke. Started again. "Why didn't you try harder? I would have—" Would have what, Vincent? Come back? Brought your criminal family into my life? Put a target on my back? Anger gave her strength. I made a choice. I chose to keep them safe, to give them a normal life, away from whatever darkness you were involved in. And look how well that worked out. His tone was bitter. They were in that mall because of me. You took a bullet because of me. Everything you did to protect them was destroyed in 30 seconds because I exist. Don't you dare make this about your guilt. Arya's good hand clenched the phone. You want to feel sorry for yourself? Fine. But my children, our children, just watched their mother get shot. They're traumatized. They're scared. And I have to figure out how to explain to them that the man who saved us is their father, and that he's a criminal, and that our lives are in danger because of who he is. I'm ending it. Vincent's voice hardened with resolve. Dmitry Volkov, his organization, all of it. I'm going to make sure you and the twins are never threatened again. By doing what? Starting a war? Killing more people? She laughed, a harsh sound. That's your solution? More violence? It's the only language my world understands. Then maybe you need to leave that world. The silence stretched so long she thought he'd hung up. Then, it's not that simple. It never is it? Arya closed her eyes, exhaustion pulling at her. I can't do this right now. I need to focus on my children, on helping them heal from this. Let me help, please. I have resources, therapists, security, money, whatever you need. What I need is for you to stay away until I figure out how to explain this to them, until I figure out what this even means. Arya, good night, Vincent. She ended the call before he could respond, then immediately regretted it. But she was too tired to call back, too overwhelmed to navigate the impossible conversation they needed to have. Sleep came in fits and starts, interrupted by pain and nightmares of gunfire and her children's screaming. She was discharged the next afternoon with strict instructions to rest and follow up in a week. The men in suits, Vincent's men, drove her home in a black SUV with tinted windows. They didn't speak to her, but their presence was both comforting and terrifying. The apartment felt smaller than ever. Mia and Lucas were subdued, staying close to her, flinching at loud noises. Mrs. Kowalski had stocked the refrigerator and left a casserole, bless her. Arya heated it up for dinner, moving carefully to protect her injured shoulder. Mom? Mia's voice was small. Are the bad men going to come here? No, baby, you're safe, I promise. But she was lying and she hated herself for it. She didn't know if they were safe, didn't know what Vincent's enemies might do next, didn't know anything anymore except that the foundation of her life had cracked wide open. That night, after the twins were finally asleep, Arya sat at her kitchen table and opened her laptop. She typed Vincent's name into the search engine, something she'd avoided doing for 15 years. The results were carefully curated. Vincent Kane, CEO of Kane Enterprises, a legitimate-looking import-export business, philanthropist, donor to various Portland charities, photos of him at fundraisers, always in expensive suits, always with that controlled expression that revealed nothing. But she dug deeper, finding the rumors beneath the polished surface, whispers of organized crime, connections to unsolved murders, a federal investigation that had gone nowhere due to lack of evidence. The Kane family's reputation as untouchable, powerful, dangerous. This was who her children's father had become. She was about to close the laptop when a news alert popped up. Warehouse fire in industrial district, suspected arson. She clicked through to the article. A warehouse owned by a shell company with Russian connections had burned to the ground last night. No casualties, but investigators suspected accelerants. The article mentioned increasing tensions between rival criminal organizations in Portland. Arya's blood ran cold. Was this Vincent's doing? His way of ending it? The phone he'd given her buzzed with a text. The fire wasn't me, but it's a message. Volkov is escalating. Please let me move you somewhere safe. She stared at the message, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, to maintain her independence, to protect her children from Vincent's world. But another part of her, the part that had taken a bullet yesterday, that had seen the cold calculation in the gunman's eyes, knew that independence was an illusion. They were already in Vincent's world whether she accepted it or not. She typed back, "We need to talk, in person, but not at my apartment. And I need you to answer every question I have. No more secrets." His response was immediate. "Tomorrow. I'll send a car, somewhere secure. And Arya, I'll tell you everything. I promise." She set the phone down and looked around her small apartment, at the life she'd built through sheer determination and sacrifice, at the photograph on the refrigerator of 2 children who didn't know their father, at the future that had seemed so certain yesterday and now felt like shifting sand. Somewhere in Portland, Vincent Kane stood in his office, looking at Arya's text message like it was a lifeline. Marcus stood nearby, arms crossed, expression disapproving. "You're making a mistake, boss. Bringing them deeper into this. They're already in this," Vincent said quietly. "They've been in this since the moment I left 15 years ago. I just didn't know it. And now? What's your play?" Vincent's jaw tightened. "I'm going to do what I should have done years ago. I'm going to protect my family, whatever it takes, even if it means war with Volkov, especially if it means that." Marcus shook his head, but didn't argue. He'd seen that look on Vincent's face before, the look that meant someone was about to die. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the city washed clean and temporary. But beneath the surface, in the dark places where men like Vincent Kane and Dmitry Volkov operated, plans were being made that would determine who survived and who didn't. And at the center of it all was a woman who'd taken a bullet for her children, and the man who'd spent 15 years trying to protect her by staying away, only to discover that distance had protected no one. The storm was coming, and this time, there would be no running from it. The car that arrived for Arya the next morning was understated, a dark gray sedan with tinted windows, driven by a woman in her 30s with sharp eyes and a professional demeanor. Not what Arya had expected from Vincent's world. "Ms. Chen, I'm Elena. Mr. Kane sent me." Her voice was calm, reassuring. "Your children will be safe while you're gone. We have 2 operatives stationed near your building, and Mrs. Kowalski has been briefed on basic security protocols." Arya's stomach twisted. "You involved Mrs. Kowalski in this?" "She was already involved the moment those men targeted you at the mall. Better she knows to be cautious." Elena opened the rear door. "Mr. Kane is waiting." The drive took them out of the city, into the hills west of Portland, where expensive homes hid behind gates and old-growth trees. They turned onto a private road that wound through forest, until it opened onto a property that took Arya's breath away, a modern house of glass and steel perched on a hillside, with views stretching to Mount Hood in the distance. "He lives here?" Arya asked, unable to keep the wonder from her voice. "One of several properties. This one is the most secure." Elena pulled up to the entrance. "He's waiting in the main room." The interior was as stunning as the exterior. High ceilings, minimalist furniture, art that Arya suspected was worth more than her annual salary. But it felt empty somehow, like a showroom rather than a home. Vincent stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, his back to her, hands in his pockets. He wore dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and even from behind, Arya could see the tension in his shoulders. "Thank you, Elena," he said without turning. "Make sure we're not disturbed." The door closed softly, leaving them alone. "Quite a place," Arya said, her voice echoing slightly in the vast space. "Crime pays well, apparently." Vincent turned to face her. He looked tired, she realized. Shadows under his eyes, a tightness around his mouth that spoke of sleepless nights. "Most of my money comes from legitimate businesses now. The import-export company is real. I've been trying to transition away from," he gestured vaguely, "from what my father built." "Trying? It's not easy to leave this world once you're in it. There are obligations, loyalties, people who depend on the organization for their livelihoods." He moved toward her slowly, like she was a wild animal that might bolt. "But I'm working on it. Have been for years." Arya sat down on the leather couch, protecting her injured shoulder. "Tell me about Dmitry Volkov. Tell me why he's targeting you." Vincent sat across from her, maintaining distance. 5 years ago, my father made a deal with the Volkov organization. They'd stay on the East Coast, we'd stay in the West. Everyone made money, no one got killed. But my father died 2 years ago, heart attack, and I took over. Dmitry saw it as an opportunity. He thinks I'm weaker than my father was. He wants to expand into our territory. And you won't let him. If I show weakness, if I let him take even a small piece of what we control, it's over. Every organization from here to Seattle will see me as vulnerable. There'll be a feeding frenzy. Vincent leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I know how this sounds. I know you think I'm just another criminal defending his empire. But the people who work for me, the families who depend on this organization, if I fall, they fall too. And what replaces me will be worse." Arya wanted to argue, to tell him he was rationalizing, but she'd seen enough of the world to know it wasn't that simple. So, what's your plan? How do you end this? Volkov is in Portland. He came personally to oversee the expansion. That's how important this is to him. He's staying at a hotel downtown, surrounded by his people. But he has to move around, has to meet with suppliers and potential allies. And when he does, Vincent's expression hardened. I'm going to make sure he understands that coming after my family was a fatal mistake. You're going to kill him. I'm going to eliminate the threat. Yes. Arya stood up, pacing to the windows, looking out at the forest. And then what? His organization retaliates? More violence? More people in danger? His second in command is a man named Alexei Petrov. He's pragmatic, not ideological. If Dmitri dies and I offer Alexei a generous settlement, territory, money, face-saving concessions, he'll take it. The war ends before it really begins. You've thought this through. I've thought about nothing else since I saw you bleeding on that mall floor. Vincent's voice cracked slightly. Since I realized those children, our children, were in danger because of me. Arya turned to face him. They're going to have questions, Vincent. About you. About why you weren't there. About what happens now. What do you want to tell them? The truth, as much of it as they can understand. She crossed her arms, protective of her injured shoulder. That their father had to leave when they were babies. That he didn't know about them. That he's been living a complicated life, but he wants to be part of theirs now. Do I? Vincent stood, moving closer. Get to be part of their lives. That depends on you. On whether you can actually leave this world behind, or if you're just going to bring danger to their door every time some new threat emerges. I'll leave it. All of it. After this is done, after Volkov is handled, I'll walk away. I have enough money to disappear, to start over somewhere safe. We all could. You and the twins could come with me. Arya laughed, a sharp sound. You think I'm going to uproot my children, leave everything we know and run away with you? We barely know each other anymore, Vincent. You're not the boy I loved when I was 13, and I'm not that girl. No, he agreed quietly. We're not those people anymore, but we have children together. That has to mean something. It means you have a responsibility to them. It means you need to make sure they're safe. It doesn't mean we're suddenly a family. Vincent flinched like she'd struck him. Fair enough. Arya's phone buzzed. Elena, texting that there was a situation developing and they needed to return to the city. Vincent checked his own phone, his expression darkening. What is it? Arya asked. Volkov's men were spotted near your apartment building an hour ago. They left before my people could intercept, but he looked at her, and she saw real fear in his eyes. We need to move you. Now. You and the twins. Somewhere Volkov can't find you. I'm not running. Arya, please. No. She moved toward him, ignoring the pain in her shoulder. You want to be their father? You want to protect us? Then you end this. Today. Tonight. However you have to. But I'm not taking my children and hiding while you play gangster. We go home. To our apartment. To our life. And you make sure that when we wake up tomorrow, this threat is gone. Vincent stared at her, something like admiration mixing with his fear. You're asking me to start a war. I'm asking you to finish one. You said Volkov came after your family. Well, we're your family now, whether you planned for it or not. So protect us. Do what you do. Just make sure my children never have to be afraid again. The drive back to the city was tense. Vincent made calls in rapid succession, his voice low and commanding, issuing orders that Arya tried not to listen to too carefully. She didn't want to know the details, didn't want to be complicit in whatever was about to happen. But she'd meant what she said. She was done running, done hiding. If Vincent Kane was going to be part of their lives, he needed to prove he could actually protect them, not just make promises. They dropped her at her building. The men in suits were more visible now, stationed at the entrance and on the street corner. Mrs. Kowalski met her at the apartment door, the twins safe inside, watching cartoons like it was a normal Saturday. Mom! Mia ran to her, careful of her injured shoulder. Are you okay? Where did you go? Just had to take care of some things, baby. Arya kissed her forehead, then Lucas's. Everything's fine. But it wasn't fine. And as the afternoon faded into evening, as Arya made dinner and helped with homework and tried to maintain normalcy, she felt the weight of what was coming. Somewhere in Portland, Vincent Kane was preparing to do terrible things, and she'd asked him to, had demanded it. What did that make her? Her phone buzzed around 9 p.m. after the twins were in bed. A text from Vincent. It's done. You're safe. I'll call tomorrow. Just 4 sentences. But Arya knew they represented violence she couldn't imagine. Knew that somewhere, Dmitry Volkov was dead, and Vincent's hands were covered in blood. She should feel guilty. Should feel horror at what she'd set in motion. Instead, she just felt relief. Her children were safe. That was all that mattered. She deleted the text and went to check on Mia and Lucas one more time, watching them sleep peacefully, their faces innocent and untroubled. They had their father's eyes, but they would never have his life. She'd make sure of that. Outside, the rain started again, washing the city clean while underneath. In the dark places, Vincent Kane's people cleaned up the evidence of what had been done to protect a family he'd only just discovered he had. The news broke the next morning. Dmitry Volkov, suspected organized crime figure, found dead in his hotel suite. Apparent heart attack, though the investigation was ongoing. His associates had immediately left Portland, returning to the East Coast. Police were calling it suspicious, but had no leads. Arya watched the news report with her coffee growing cold in her hand. Mia and Lucas eating breakfast behind her, oblivious to what it meant. Her phone rang. Vincent. "Did you see?" he asked without preamble. "I saw. It's over. Alexei Petrov called me an hour ago. He's accepting my terms. The war ends before it started. You're safe. The twins are safe." Arya closed her eyes. "How did you—" She stopped. "Never mind. I don't want to know. Probably smart." A pause. "Can I see them? The twins? I know you said to wait, but come to dinner tonight. 6 o'clock. I'll tell them first. Prepare them." "Arya, thank you. Don't thank me yet. You haven't met your children properly. They might hate you. I'll take that risk." After he hung up, Arya sat the twins down at the kitchen table. This was the conversation she'd been dreading, the one that would change everything. "You remember the man from the mall? The one who helped us?" Lucas nodded slowly. Mia's eyes were wide. "His name is Vincent, and he's—" Arya took a breath. "He's your father." Silence. Then Mia. "Our dad? But you said our dad was gone." "He was. He had to leave before you were born, and he didn't know about you. But now he does, and he wants to meet you, to be part of your lives, if you want that." Lucas, always the analytical one, frowned. Why did he have to leave? His family had problems, dangerous problems. He left to keep us safe. It was a version of the truth, simplified for 6-year-olds. But he's here now, and he wants to know you. "Is he nice?" Mia asked. Arya thought about the boy Vincent had been, and the man he'd become. "He's complicated, but yes, I think he's nice, and I think he'll love you very much." The day passed in a blur of nervous preparation. Arya cleaned the apartment, made lasagna, Vincent's favorite when they were kids, and tried to calm her racing heart. The twins were a mix of excited and nervous, asking 100 questions she didn't know how to answer. At exactly 6 o'clock, there was a knock on the door. Vincent stood in the hallway, and Arya almost didn't recognize him. He wore jeans and a simple sweater, his hair slightly mussed, and he was holding 2 wrapped presents and a bouquet of flowers. He looked terrified. "Hi," he said. "Hi." Arya stepped aside. "Come in." Mia and Lucas stood in the living room, holding hands, watching this stranger who was their father. Vincent knelt down to their level, setting the presents aside. "Hi, Mia. Hi, Lucas. I'm Vincent. His voice caught. "I'm your dad." Lucas spoke first, his voice small but brave. "Do you have gray eyes like us?" Vincent smiled, and Arya saw tears threatening. "I do. We match." "Why weren't you here before?" Mia asked, the question every child of an absent parent eventually asks. "I made a mistake. I thought staying away would keep you safe, but I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I wasn't here." He looked at Arya, then back at the twins. "But I'm here now. And if you'll let me, I'd like to be part of your lives. I'd like to be your dad." Mia looked at Lucas. Some silent sibling communication passed between them. Then Mia stepped forward and hugged Vincent, her small arms wrapping around his neck. "Okay," she said simply. Vincent's arms came around her, and he closed his eyes, holding his daughter for the first time. Lucas joined the hug a moment later, less certain but willing to try. Arya watched from the doorway, her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. This was what she'd wanted for them. A father, a family, something whole instead of broken. Dinner was awkward at first, but children have a remarkable ability to adapt. By dessert, Mia was showing Vincent her drawings, and Lucas was explaining his favorite books. Vincent listened with complete attention, asking questions, laughing at their stories, looking at Arya occasionally with an expression of wonder and gratitude. After the twins went to bed, after they'd both insisted Vincent read them a story, which he did with a shaking voice, Arya and Vincent stood in the kitchen, cleaning dishes in companionable silence. "Thank you," Vincent said finally, "for letting me in, for giving me this chance. Don't make me regret it. I won't, I promise." He dried a plate, set it carefully in the cabinet. "I meant what I said. I'm leaving the organization. Marcus is taking over. He's been my second for years, he's ready. I'm transitioning everything to him over the next month. And then I'm just Vincent Kane, former CEO, living off investments and trying to figure out how to be a father." He looked at her. "If you'll let me." Arya leaned against the counter, studying him. "This isn't a fairy tale, Vincent. We're not going to suddenly be a happy family. I've been raising them alone for 6 years. They have routines, rules, a life that doesn't include you. You're going to have to earn your place in it. I know, I will. And if you bring danger to their door again, if your past comes back, if someone else decides to use us as leverage, I will take them and disappear so completely you'll never find us. Understood? Understood." He moved closer, his voice soft. "But I won't let that happen. Everything I've done, everything I'm doing, is to make sure you're safe. All 3 of you." They stood there in her tiny kitchen, the space between them charged with history and possibility. Arya remembered being 13, kissing him behind the gym, thinking they'd be together forever. She remembered being 14 and heartbroken, thinking she'd never see him again. She remembered being pregnant and terrified, thinking she'd raise his children alone. And now, here he was. Not the boy she'd loved, but a man who'd done terrible things for what he believed were the right reasons. A man who was trying to change. A man who looked at their children like they were miracles. "One day at a time," she said finally. "That's all I can promise. One day at a time, we'll figure this out." "One day at a time," Vincent agreed. He left shortly after, but not before kissing both twins goodnight again, his hand lingering on their small heads like he was memorizing the feel of them. At the door, he paused. "I never stopped thinking about you," he said to Arya. "All those years. I never stopped." "I know," she said. "I never stopped either." Then he was gone, and Arya was alone with her children, and the strange new future that had opened up before them. Over the following weeks, Vincent became a fixture in their lives. He came for dinner twice a week, took the twins to the park on Saturdays, helped Lucas with his math homework, and attended Mia's school play. He was patient and gentle, and clearly trying so hard to be what they needed. And slowly, carefully, Arya felt herself softening toward him. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something like understanding. He'd made choices with the information he had. So had she. And now they were both trying to do better. 3 months after the shooting, Vincent officially stepped down from the Kane organization. The transition was smooth. Marcus was capable, and Vincent had spent years building legitimate businesses that would support him without the criminal enterprises. He bought a house in Arya's neighborhood, close enough to be present, but not intrusive. "I want to be here," he told her. "Every day, every moment I can." The twins adjusted faster than Arya expected. Children are resilient, and Vincent's devotion to them was obvious. They started calling him Dad without prompting, started running to him when he arrived, started including him in their drawings and stories, and Arya watched, her heart healing in ways she hadn't known it was broken. One evening, 6 months after that terrible day in the mall, Vincent and Arya stood on his new porch while the twins played in the backyard. The rain had finally stopped. It was spring now, and Portland was blooming with cherry blossoms and possibility. "I never thought I'd have this," Vincent said quietly. "A family, a normal life. I thought I'd destroyed any chance of it years ago." "You almost did," Arya said. "But you're here now. That's what matters." He turned to her, his gray eyes, the same eyes their children had inherited, serious and hopeful. "Is there a chance for us? Not just as parents, but—" He gestured between them. "As more?" Arya considered the question, considered the boy he'd been and the man he'd become, considered the life they might build together, if they were brave enough to try. "Maybe," she said finally. "One day at a time, remember? One day at a time," he agreed, and smiled. In the backyard, Mia and Lucas were laughing, chasing each other through the grass, their voices bright with joy. They were safe, they were loved, they were whole. And as Arya watched them, She thought about the bullet she'd taken, the pain she'd endured, the fear that had nearly destroyed her. She thought about the choices that had led them all to this moment. Vincent's choice to leave, her choice to raise their children alone, his choice to come back, her choice to let him. All of it had been necessary. All of it had brought them here. The rain began again, soft and gentle, washing the city clean. But this time, Arya didn't see it as an ending. She saw it as a beginning, a fresh start for all of them, a chance to build something new from the broken pieces of the past. Vincent reached for her hand. After a moment, she took it, and together, they watched their children play in the Portland spring, the future uncertain, but finally full of hope. Thanks for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories. Drop a comment below and let me know what you thought about Vincent and Arya's journey, and tell me where in the world you're listening from. Your support means everything, and I'll see you in the next story.